Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Stephen Rubinstein, the chair of ABNY. I want to start by thanking Vornado, our host, for welcoming us to this beautiful space. And I know Michael Franco's here, Barry Langer's here. You guys did, and more people have come over to me and said what an incredible job you guys have done, and it's truly transformative. So thank you for what this is to New York. I want to say something else about just being in this room. We're proud to have a community at ABNY. I gotta say, this feels like a really warm group of people. I think it's so nice to see so many people care about this issue and turn out. We have a wonderful group of elected officials. I'll recognize them. I'll ask them to hold your applause until the end. State Senator Brad Hoylman's here. Assembly members Michael Lasher, Brad Hoylman Siegel, sorry, Michael Lasher, Tony Simone, Borough President Mark Levine, soon to be our new controller, Councilmember Eric Botcher, former Governor David Patterson is here, former Lieutenant Governor Betsy McCoy-Ross is here, former Council Speaker Corey Johnson is here, Carl Weisbrot is here, Kathy Wild is here. It is a great group of people, and I'm sure I've missed somebody who have committed their lives to our city. I want to say thank you to all of you for what you do, and thanks for showing up at ABNY. So we're here today to talk about the future of Penn Station, but as we look at what's ahead, I want to take a moment to show some civic pride in how far this area has come these last few years. To those of us who look longingly at old Bernice Abbott photos of this area, or who have experienced this neighborhood mostly as a struggle or a fight to navigate, it's wonderful to see the progress, how different this is. Moynihan Train Hall, Amtrak's new entrance, the expanded LIR concourse, new subway entrances, the new Plaza 33. It's been a transformation worthy of our great city, and that's a credit to the MTA, to Amtrak, to Vornado, and to all the advocates who have kept the fire burning. Now today we're going to talk about the centerpiece of this revitalization, Penn Station. The man who has stepped up to take on this challenge is Andy Byford, and we're grateful to have him here today. He is someone who actually emerged from his first stint in New York politics with his reputation not just intact, but advanced, and that is for a good reason. One, he created and executed the turnaround plan that pulled our subways back from the brink, greatly improving on-time performance. And for that, Andy, thank you on behalf of all our New Yorkers. He embodies a great truism of our city, one known to generations of New Yorkers. Dress British, think Yiddish. And as legend goes, he seems to have been forced out of his last position in New York City, running New York's NYC Transit, for of all things being too talented, too outgoing, and too successful. Train Daddy, welcome home. We're glad to have you back. Being popular and running a big part of the MTA do not usually go hand in hand, but through competence, accessibility, and real results, Andy earned the respect of New York. If ever there is a project that needs his skills, it's this one right here at Penn Station. I know we're all concerned about the recent administration's announcement that they are going to pull funding from Gateway and the 2nd Avenue subway, two projects we desperately need. But by appointing Andy to lead the federal government's work at Penn is a sign that this project, at long last, could be on the cusp of happening. We look forward to hearing from him about the latest vision and planning for Penn Station and how our community might help along the way. I want to take a moment to thank our panel moderator today, my namesake, Dana Rubinstein of the New York Times. Dana has been one of the pioneers of the Times Transit beat earlier in her career. I should say Dana and I are not related. I know that for certain because there's something we talk about that I got dead wrong and she got right. And unlike my real life sister, who I love, Dana never feels the need to tell me, I told you so. Dana will lead our conversation. We have an incredible panel. Mark Levine is on the panel. Sarah Kaufman from Rudin Center. Betsy Plum is on the panel. They're all people who have know their stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, please start this off by helping me give a warm ABNY welcome to Andy Byford.
Well, look, Stephen, thank you very much for that kind welcome. It's great to be here at ABNY, actually, not least because in my comparatively short time back, I got back here in May to take up this new challenge. I've met so many organizations. They've all got these fancy acronyms, the GCA, the Building Congress, so the BGC, if I remember rightly. But for personal reasons, I've always loved ABNY because it's ABNY. And I've always liked that. So if you've got any merch, let me know because I'd like to buy some. But the main reason for that, though, being I love this place. I always have. And as you alluded to, it was a bit of a short stint as president of New York City Transit. So when I was offered the opportunity, or I asked for the opportunity actually, when the feds announced the demise of what I was doing, which was the high-speed gig, which was a bit of a shock, and particularly we were making huge progress on the Dallas to Houston project. In that same week, it was announced that the feds would be taking carriage of this wonderful project, namely New York Penn, what was called reconstruction and expansion. So I was straight on to my boss, Tony Kosher, to say, I really want that job. Tony, please let me have a crack at it. It's my kind of challenge, but also, and it meant a lot to me, and it's been so nice seeing so many friendly faces and having such a warm welcome. It meant I could get back to New York, and so I'm so happy to be here. This is truly something I find inspirational, this job. You know, what could be more iconic than Penn Station? Because this is what we lost, and that is what I call a railway station. And I've seen a few stations around the world, you know, there's some absolutely stunning stations, et cetera, and we had that. That was our station. Obviously, we got Grand Central as well, which is in itself one of the great termini of the world. But Penn Station, I've been reading books about it, I've got pictures about it, I'm kind of obsessed with it actually. This was the most spectacular gateway into New York City. It was New York City, it was the essence of New York City, and yet demolition started on this wonderful edifice almost exactly 62 years ago. I think I got my maths right. And to me, that's what a New York station should look like. And that's the project that I'm now leading with my colleagues. Hello to all the Amtrackers, good to see you. We are determined to give New York back a station worthy of this great city, of this state, and of this country. But before I talk about how we're moving forward with Penn Station, and lots of detail on that, I'd just like to use a little case study on a project in one of New York's fiercest competitors, the other big global center, namely London. And the reason for putting this up is I think it highlights a golden opportunity for what we could have. So this is the Elizabeth line. This is a subway line that's very dear to my heart. I was honored to be there in 2022 when Her Majesty the Queen opened the Elizabeth line. And for those of you who don't know what it is effectively, it's a through-running cross-London route that connected what were disparate, separate east and west mainline sections of railway. So when you used to want to traverse London, you had to get off the train at Paddington in the west and go through on either the Central line or chug round the Circle line to Liverpool Street to then carry on out east. And in putting the Elizabeth line together, it was the missing piece in the jigsaw. The Elizabeth line, a spectacular new addition to London's transport network, not only means you can now whisk through central London through these spectacular new stations. You can see some of the imagery up there. But it's been a game changer for London because in addition to the existing north-south through-running route, namely Thameslink, you've now got this unprecedented way of getting from east to west and connecting the two key financial hubs of London, namely the City of London and Canary Wharf, with Heathrow Airport in an unprecedented 45 minutes. And that's been a game changer for not only for London, but for the UK economy. And I saw a stat the other day that said the economic impact of the Elizabeth line is £42 billion to the UK exchequer and counting. So Kathy, it's the sort of thing that it would certainly prick up your ears. The economic impact has been stunning. And within a kilometre, so a mile just under, of an Elizabeth line station, the number of new houses is 8 to 14% higher. Nearly 400,000 jobs have been created since 2015. 55,000 new homes in and around the immediate vicinity within central London, 60% in Greater London's employment growth since the line opened. So I believe we have, I'm going to use those two words again, a golden opportunity here to do something similar. Because the Elizabeth line has been transformative. I saw how new businesses, new homes, all sorts of economic activity basically popped up on the east and the west side of London. And secondary centres such as Romford out east and let's say Reading on the west have hugely benefited from this line that goes through the middle of town. So why do I think that that is relevant to New York? Well, there's long been a desire and talk of having through running through the center of New York. We have it at Amtrak, but so many trains stop and either empty out and go back from whence they came, or stop and then go empty and trains sit in the depots. So we should at least explore this. And 2 years ago, before I had any idea that I would be taking up this role, I called for further evaluation on through running in New York, and I explicitly said I didn't think morally we should even be countenancing expansion and demolishing Block 780 until we fully exploit the existing station. Yes, at the moment it is hugely busy, but can we not make more efficient use of that station? Aren't there opportunities to do something like what the Elizabeth line has done for London? I think there are. So let's talk about Penn Station. Without question, the most important station in the Amtrak network. And we very much appreciate being given the opportunity by the administration to lead this project, building on the good work that's already been done by others. I can't overemphasize the importance of Penn Station to Amtrak, but also to the Northeast Corridor and ultimately to the US itself. It's the busiest transformation facility in North America with over 1,000 daily train movements, and it serves more people daily than Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK combined. It's a big deal. It's 600,000 passengers go through that station every day. It's huge. It serves 18 routes, Amtrak routes. It hosts more than 12 million riders a year for Amtrak, and we have around 1,000 Amtrak employees who work in the station. But of course, it's not just us. It's our sister agencies, New Jersey Transit, it's the Long Island Railroad for the MTA, and soon we'll have Metro North coming into the station. So it's going to get even busier. Without question, this is the linchpin of the Northeast Corridor, and yet not only is it sort of the ugly duckling in the middle of the corridor, but it impedes us because it's so congested. So we need to do something about that. Now, you know the challenge is the same as I do. Given the importance of this station, you would think by now it would be this glamorous, enormous complex that was able to easily accommodate the people that it serves. But it's still pretty much exactly as it was built when it was built when Madison Square Gardens was put on top under the ashes of the former station. It was built to handle 200,000 people a day. It now handles 3 times that. And so you know, as well as I do, that it is in no way, shape or form good enough. And the station really struggles. And yet we've been talking about this for decades. Decades, people have said we need to do something about New York's Penn Station. So let's talk about some of the challenges. The street presence. Many's the time I've stood outside contemplating what we're going to do at Penn Station, and I've literally been right outside, and people have come up to me, tourists presumably, but they've said, "Excuse me, can you tell me where Penn Station is?" And I'm like, well, it's there, but it's not exactly obvious, right? Because all the entrances look different. They kind of hide their light under a bushel. It's just not, it doesn't have visible presence. It doesn't have the sort of grandeur that it should do. The bi-level passenger concourse provides a confusing layout with poor sight lines. It's very difficult to find your way around. Many of the ceilings are low, there's very limited natural light. And it simply wasn't designed for the number of passengers that it now serves. We've got poor egress, we've got poor uncomfortable conditions. The inadequate capacity there, that's the New Jersey side. It's known by the New Jersey travelers as the pit. You knew that, right? It's called the pit. And even on a good day, it looks like, oh my God, the service must be completely disrupted. No, That's just what it is. And I hate seeing particularly older people struggling with those big doors. It's ridiculous. It's hot, it's cramped, it's confusing, it's not good enough. So there's a very poor passenger experience. Now, having said that, a lot of good stuff has been done. There have been these piecemeal improvements made over time. So there is hope. And in recent years, we've undertaken with NJT and with the MTA continuous improvement programs to make things better. So let's take some examples. Amtrak and Vornado have completed the transformation, as you can see on the screen there, of the entrance at 7th Avenue and 32nd Street. So that's now got natural light and air going down into the concourse. It's fully accessible, and it's a much safer experience. Over the road, and we heard about this earlier, Stephen, you made reference to it. You've got the beautiful Moynihan train hall. I remember coming back to New York. Once I came back, I was stunned. I knew it was underway. It looks amazing. It's really great. And that's an example of a simplified, single-level boarding concourse. You know, it's kind of intuitive. You can see straight across the concourse with plenty of natural light. And on the 33rd Street concourse, there it is. I walked through there this morning when I got off my subway. The new entrance on 7th Avenue and 31st Street provide higher ceilings, exponentially better retail, more natural light, and credit to my friends at the MTA, because that is a nice piece of work. And whatever we do, just before anyone asks, whatever we do, we ain't touching that, right? That is a beautiful concourse. But these have been piecemeal approaches. Definitely things have got better, but they still don't fully address the station's substandard conditions. The overall complex still looks tired, it's cluttered, and it's nothing like the grand edifice to New York that we once had. And that's why we're moving forward together with a top-to-bottom renovation to give New York a Penn Station that is modern, iconic, and is the world-class destination that we should surely be aiming to achieve. But not just the aesthetic, not just the look and feel, but that what prioritizes safety, efficiency, and that is a responsible use of taxpayer investments. And while we're at it, let's see what we can do about the public realm to truly create a beautiful new Penn district and to make a welcoming environment for all to use and then to enjoy. And when I say transformation, and that's a word I use deliberately, I mean just that. So not reconstruction, not modernization. That sounds kind of underwhelming. We are talking top to bottom modernization. I want every aspect of the new Penn Station to be consistently excellent. Every single aspect. So the signage, the retail offer, the ambiance, the customer service, the operations, the logistics, everything's got to be world class. If other places can have that, so can we. So, thank you. Thank you. So, that's easy to say, right? But how do you do it? So this means we have to start by completely overhauling the customer experience from the very first moment you walk up to Penn Station to the time you spend in the station, in the concourses, making your way through the station, and to when your train leaves. So we need to, and this is the base scope of the project. This is what we're saying to prospective bidders. This is your base scope. This is we're telling them these are the kind of things we want. All unrenovated state entrances have to be made more visible. I want them to be fully ADA accessible. Now, of course, we have to do that, but let's go beyond code. I want this station to be an exemplar of how accessibility should be. So for all aspects of accessibility, let's really make this a model. But let's give this station visible entrances. So in the future, no one says, where's Penn Station? It will be completely obvious. We want to have also a single level concourse, a bit like what we got over the road at Moynihan. Single level concourse, lots of natural daylight, enhanced wayfinding. A station that will be truly intuitive, so you don't really need to go and ask someone. It's obvious where you need to get to. We want to make sure as a project team that we don't forget our staff. I call them miracle workers, right? At the moment, they're squirreled away in these gloomy, windowless, pokey little rooms. Somehow they keep that place running, and that's to their credit. MJT, MTA, and Amtrak staff. So let's give them fit-for-purpose, state-of-the-art facilities and systems to use. And although ambience is crucial, we need to also exponentially improve the fire life safety and to make the station exponentially more efficient to run. And we just heard from our SWAG, the Station Working Advisory Group. Hey SWAG, how are you? We resumed the SWAG meetings the other day, that it's critical that they made the point that we prioritize function over form. Well, actually, I think we should and we could do both. And that's why we're tasking the developer, the P3 master developer, which we will be shortly soliciting, in fact the process is underway, to design purpose-built operational spaces that will support a much more efficient, a safer, and a much more pleasant station to use. And then finally on this slide, bottom right, I don't know if you've ever noticed it. It's kind of hidden, or sort of hidden in full view. On 31st Street, you have the last remaining piece of the old McKean, Mead and White. I always get that wrong. McKean, Mead and White. Thank you, Sarah. The last remaining piece of the old station, the last vestige of the old Penn Station. Same architects, same look. That's still there, believe it or not. And it has some equipment in the basement, but the rest of the building is criminally underutilized. So we want to bring that back into service. We think that that can play a part in the new look Penn. And that's not all though. That's the base scope. And when you set out on a P3 master development program, which is one of the directives given to us, so those are our marching orders, you don't normally specify too much because you want to mine the imagination and the ingenuity of the private sector. So that's exactly what we're intending to do. With some deliverables that we're saying, don't waste our time with a multi-level concourse, we want a single-level concourse. We're also saying, well, let's see what other ideas you might have out there. Let's mine the talent in this room, but also out there in the great city of New York. We need the best and brightest design ideas. We want true innovation such that we really can come up with this new station that is fit for purpose. So we are saying, you can read the bullet points, we will allow proposals to go above and beyond that base scope, and we will even allow people to propose work on land outside the station boundaries, provided, so there are caveats, provided the additional work proposed is credible and demonstrably beneficial to the station and the customers. Now, we're not committing to anything. Before anyone gets that idea, we're not committing to anything. We're inviting ideas. But we do want to explore what's possible. Of course, the big question is, okay, how do you fund it? And that's a question on many people's minds lately, and it is absolutely a question on my mind. It's top of my mind. So far, we have $43 million from the feds to run the master developer procurement, the early stages of it, and to bring in some advisors. We've got key advisors on board already. And also to support the early design work to get the design to 10%. Clearly, we will need a lot more than that. And we're contemplating, as part of the competition, a stipend and a pre-designed development fee so that we can compensate to proposers for their time and talent, because we want this to be a really meaningful competition. Now, we anticipate, and I'm going to add the word we require, significant additional federal funding. And the federal government, in assigning the responsibility for this project to Amtrak and to ultimately giving me this responsibility, the federal government is rock solid committed to getting this done. And that means they will continue to support this project financially. And I'll hold them to that. We can't do it unless we have substantial public funding, federal funding, to get this job done. That's absolutely vital. But we do expect private investment as well, and we're thinking creatively. A project of this scale will not be funded by just one entity. It will take creativity, and we need to look into all of the various financing tools that are available, PABs, TIFIA, RIF loans, to get us across the finish line. But I just want to reiterate one more point. Let's be clear here. It is wholly unrealistic, even though I might want it in my ideal world, it is wholly unrealistic to expect that this project will be wholly funded by the public sector. That's been tried and failed in the past. It's definitely going to be a combination of public funding and of private funding. So, continuing in that vein, how do we fill the gap? Well, we are contemplating in the project scope and in the letters of interest that we've put out, a range of O&M, operations and maintenance responsibilities that could, again I use that word could, be thrown into the mix as a means of enticing developers to work with us, but also as a means of actually paying for this thing. So examples of potential O&M scope, janitorial services, escalator, elevator maintenance, lighting, painting, ceiling wall repairs, loading dock management, enough of all the trucks on 32nd Street, right, whichever street it is, 32nd I think. It's ridiculous, we need to sort that out. So functions that involve the running of the building, but absolutely not transportation functions or customer service functions. So any capital stack will be made up of a mixture of public and private sources. But my aim is to minimize the gap between the project cost, whatever that is, because we don't know yet, right? We haven't run the competition. That will determine how much the project cost is. But to minimize the gap between the project cost and the publicly funded pot to in turn minimize any repayments. That's the objective. If you imagine that's the full stack, I'm trying to load it with my team. We're trying to load it up with as much public funding as possible to leave the gap to be filled as small as possible. And I will not recommend any option to the Amtrak board that is unaffordable or that saddles the railroads and New Yorkers with unaffordable debt. So let's talk about schedule. We talked about budget. Let's talk about schedule. We have two mandates from the federal government. Number one, get a shovel in the ground by the end of 2027. And number two, that we should explore a P3 master developer-led solution. So back in August, the US Department of Transportation, the Secretary and I announced the official schedule for the project here at Penn. Secretary Duffy and I stood at Penn, and we announced that we were putting the industry on notice, get ready, there's going to be a competition, and that will kick off in earnest in October. Since then, we have onboarded a number of advisors, key advisors. We've got a P3 advisor coming soon, but we've already got a legal advisor, a financial advisor, and an environmental advisor on board. And all of that's happened since May. Credit to my colleagues at the Amtrak table. We are powering through this process diligently, compliantly, but in a new paradigm of getting things done. So we've also been thoughtfully engaging with the construction industry. I've spent a lot of time with the various construction organizations. And earlier this month, we held a 2-day industry day event where we had something like nearly 100 people from all sorts of different potential bidding consortia. Over 79 individuals from over 59 firms. The buzz in the room was tangible. People are very interested in being involved in this job. And right on time, we issued a request for letters of interest on October the 30th, which officially kicked off our 2-step procurement process, which I'll talk about some more in a second. And by next June, we will complete that 2-step procurement process, announce the selection of our master developer, and begin preliminary design. And we are determined to hit that end date, shovel in the ground by the end of 2027. In fact, my team know this. We're putting a clock up on the wall soon, aren't we, Sarah? We're going to have a countdown clock on the wall that will say, we will put a shovel in the ground, and it will count down years, months, weeks, days, and seconds. So that will motivate everyone. What is that process? The master developer procurement process. So we've released those letters of interest, or the requests for letters of interest. Firms are working on those letters of interest as we speak. And that kicks off that 2-phase procurement process to which I alluded earlier. We'll receive them back in about a month. We'll shortlist firms using very, very specific criteria, evaluation criteria. And then we will provide an RFP to the shortlisted proposers. And that will kick off phase 2 of the process with a master developer selected next spring. This is a standard Amtrak procurement process. And the Amtrak board will ultimately choose which proposal we go to. So yes, it's unusual in that we're expediting things, but we're following a standard Amtrak process, which is entirely the way to go. And next spring, my job with my team is to take the recommended option to the Amtrak board, and they will have the final say. Okay, so there's lots of speculation out there about how it actually happens. Let me be crystal clear. It is the Amtrak board, and only the Amtrak board, that will make that decision. We will then notify the White House of the decision, and we'll show them the design, because don't forget, I'm intending to ask them for literally billions of dollars, so they're going to have they want to certainly see what the design looks like. But it's the Amtrak board that will make that decision. And I think that's essential that people understand that. In parallel, while all this is going on, while we're running the Master Developer Competition, our colleagues at the FRA are running a study on station capacity. And that takes us back to, remember my analogy of the Elizabeth line. What they're working on, and it has to happen in tandem, is initially what physical changes should happen at the station in order to enable more efficient station operations. And the second part of that study, and that will take over a process of ultimately 2 years, is what is the market for much more through running of trains? So Jersey trains going to Connecticut or across to Long Island, etc. So they're going to complete that study while we're working with the master developer. Now, of course, none of this can be done in a vacuum. And that's why since taking this job on in May, I've been working with elected officials, hosted productive conversations with our railroad partners, the MTA and NJT. And recently, as I mentioned earlier, we reconvened our SWAG, Station Working Advisory Group, comprised of a diverse group of community stakeholders. We're working with DOT to continue to support this work and to give them assurance that we're sticking to time frame. And throughout the life of this project, we will continue to collaborate with our partners, because, at the end of the day, it might be Amtrak's facility, but we all have to use it to deliver this project against this aggressive, but I'm convinced, achievable time frame. And I will continue that dialogue, and it's why I'm here today. It's why also I've met with myriad elected officials, again, some of whom are here today, who've been fantastic, particularly on the west side of the city. I've met with neighborhood groups, with media, with sister agencies, with Gateway, with the city, with state representatives, with the residents of Block 780. I had a great meeting with them, and individual New Yorkers when I'm standing around outside the station and people ask me about the project. And that will continue. This is a transparent project. It's a transparent process. It's not my station, it's their station, and we're committed to making sure that people, A, get what they need, and B, like what they inherit. So a final slide then. We're counting on the industry and the business community. Please come forward with your most innovative ideas. We're not looking for status quo on this project. We could just, quotes, modernize the station. That's not good enough. Let's really grasp the moment. And the good news is we're starting from a position where everyone agrees on one thing. The existing station is not good enough, right? I have yet to meet that person who says, what's the matter with it? Leave it alone. I like 1960s architecture. I like a sort of a quaint, old-fashioned ambiance. No, I haven't met that person yet. But what I do know already from this job is everyone has a different opinion on what it should be and how it should be done. And that's going to be the difficult bit to navigate. But the way I look at it is this is our golden opportunity. Look at all the jobs that have been done in New York. It's really impressive, actually. Like, you can see the new terminal at Newark. LaGuardia, I know there's colleagues here who did the LaGuardia job. That is just beautiful and not easy to renovate a station or modernize a station while it's being used. JFK's coming together. The Midtown bus terminal's coming together. But there's one ugly duckling that still needs to be sorted out, and that's Penn Station. So it isn't going to be easy, but you know me, I like a challenge. There's already a healthy discussion going on about how the project should or should not be done, but I know one thing. This is our golden opportunity. Enough talking, let's get it done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dana, and I'll introduce everyone briefly. You all know Andy, Mark Levine, the Comptroller-elect and Manhattan Borough President, Sarah Kaufman from the Rudin Center, and Betsy Plum from the Riders Alliance. I guess my first question is, Andy, your relentless optimism aside, like how much confidence do we have that this will actually happen, given all of the many sort of plans to redo Penn that have since fallen by the wayside over the years? And that's for any of you. Yeah.
Well, maybe
Andy.
I'll start if I may.
I know you think it's going to happen.
The reason I think the game changer, the differentiator this time, is that we do have the federal support that hasn't been there in the past. We still need to have support from everyone represented in the room. We still need to have the support of the states, of the city. But without having the feds having sort of skin in the game, I think that's one of the reasons we've always struggled. So in going to see the White House when they asked to see me, I made clear, because you don't take on a job expecting to fail, who does that? I made clear that this was an enduring mandate. And so far, they've kept to their word. They know that this is going to require substantial funds, and I am told that the president himself wants this job done. So that gives me confidence that this will happen. Time will tell. Obviously, we've got to put together the funding stack. We've got to make sure that this is a decision or a recommendation that passes muster with the Amtrak board. But as long as we've got that determination and that political support to get it done, I think it's our best opportunity.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Andy Byford is the greatest railroad leader of our generation. Yes, applaud for that. And it is an extraordinary gift that he has chosen to put his talents and his energy into this project. So while the timeline here would come pretty close to defying the laws of bureaucratic physics, if there's anyone who can ram it through, it is Andy Byford. And I will say that at every level of government, city, state, and I believe federal, the willpower is there. My own feeling is that for the first time in a quarter century, we actually have a chance to do this. And I'm not sure we're gonna have that chance again. So I think we have to stop at nothing to get this done. I'm certainly gonna fight in my role in city government to make sure this happens. And I am optimistic that with Andy's leadership and the unanimous support, we can make this happen.
Betsy?
It will surprise no one that knows the work of Riders Alliance. We think a lot about the rider experience. And from that perspective, it has to get done, right? It's not a question of how many more years. We think of our work not just as a rider advocacy organization, but as a democracy organization, how most New Yorkers or regional folks interact with their government is our transportation system. And I think that slide that Andy had of what Penn Station looks like right now is really profound, because that's what we're all saying government is. It's chaotic and it's confusing, it's inaccessible, and it doesn't really care if you're crowded and cramped and can get where you need to go. And at a moment where democracy is really important and people showing up to the polls is really important, and just believing that we can get hard things done, Penn Station is absolutely a part of that, because every single day or second, Andy, to that clock that'll soon be up, that's a moment when government isn't working for New York. And so I think that is a lot of trust that is eroded. I think it is trust that we can build back, but it's built back in drops, and it can be lost. Trust is lost in buckets, they say. And so from our perspective, the real cost we have here is the lack of confidence that we have. And I think we're very profoundly moved, Andy, by you approaching this with positivity and saying we can do hard things. We have congestion pricing. We just proved that New York can start to tackle these big problems, but that's very much our perspective, that it has to get done, and it can get done. We can do this.
You talked about, Andy, the federal government's rock-solid commitment to this. They also had a rock-solid commitment, I believe, to Gateway. Is there any point in doing Penn without Gateway?
Well, I would say yes. I would also add we are still proceeding on the basis that we expect Gateway to go ahead, because you've got to make assumptions, right? Where we are looking with our colleagues at the FRA on the service optimization study, that assumes that these trains will still come in from New Jersey and will need to be accommodated somewhere, and that's why we're looking at the potential for through running. But that notwithstanding, to put every egg in the Gateway basket, you still got to do something about Penn Station, in my professional opinion. That station is just not good enough. So, I'm not fazed by the politics. I'll be interested to see what actually happens. The only certainty is that we need to do something about Penn Station. So until we get new marching orders, that's what we're doing. And my only motivation in doing this is I tried to do the same at New York City Transit. It's not to get involved in the politics. Just do what needs to be done. Do the right thing. I only came here to build a station.
What is one to do with sort of the Jim Dolan question of it all? Like, does Madison Square Garden, can it stay? Should it go? I feel like this question is as interminable as the question of Penn Station itself.
In issuing the RFLOI and the RFP, when that comes out, we are deliberately silent on the fate of MSG. Number one, because it's not our decision. Number two, because we don't know what's going to happen with that. But number three, critically, and precisely because this is a genuine competition and we don't know what the outcome will be, and we are interested in all possible scenarios, whether they're predicated on the garden staying put or predicated on the garden moving, we are running a competition that does not opine on that. So other people will decide that. Let's see what's out there. Let's see what people's visions are. Let's see what's possible. And over time, it will become apparent as to what the fate of the garden actually is. I have met with Mr. Dolan. I know his views, but let's run that competition transparently and almost neutrally on that point.
What are his views?
He has made it clear, it's no state secret, he has made it clear that he's very proud of his arena, he's spent £1 billion on his arena, and that he's not in a rush to move. That's his position.
We do have some leverage here because the current arena benefits from a special permit, which allows it to operate with large crowds. It also benefits from a very substantial tax exemption from the state. I would love to move the arena. Of course, we need an alternative site, and we need a way to pay for building a new arena. And I really have not yet heard viable answers to those questions. I've heard alternate sites that don't actually fit a full-size arena. I've heard about alternate sites where the property owner doesn't want to demolish what's there, has no interest in such a project. And then there's the cost of billions of dollars. So it's great that we're open to those proposals. Maybe something new that we don't expect will come in. But I want to emphasize that we can create a great Penn Station, even with the arena there, by knocking down the Hula Theater, by getting a grand entrance on 8th Avenue. I think we can meet every goal that Andy laid out. We can have a unified concourse. We can reopen the exterior to create more vibrant public space. We can fix all the operational issues. We can fix the truck parking and so much more. If you think I'm wrong, Andy, tell me, but I believe that while, again, it is preferable to move the arena, that does not have to stop us from doing something really grand.
Yeah, I think going back to the importance of Penn Station in general, Mark, you rightly raised the idea of a public square, public space. In a neighborhood that's pretty short on public space, there's a real opportunity to create kind of a public square and increase connectivity with the surrounding area. What wasn't discussed earlier is Penn Station's importance to the city as a whole. Not only is it a vital connector to the region and also to the rest of the United States through intercity rail, it also is one of the top city bike destinations, connects to 6 subway lines, and is also just down the block from Midtown Bus Terminal, which is just down the west side from the Midtown Bus Terminal. So Penn Station being the busiest train station in North America, I believe, and the Midtown Bus Terminal being the busiest bus terminal in North America, serving a million people a day pretty much in total. The importance of this kind of spine of connectivity on the west side cannot be underestimated.
You talked about through running, obviously, and that would require cooperation and working well collaboratively between railroads. Right now, Amtrak's kind of at war with the MTA over Penn Access. I mean, how do you surmount those sort of institutional differences?
I think relationships help. I was very proud to work for the MTA, and I know Jan Oliba well. So he and I have had quite a few conversations on this topic already. I've had excellent conversations with Chris Kaluri over at New Jersey Transit. And the good news, as I mentioned in my few words, was we all agree that the status quo is not good enough, that we need to come up with a design that meets the needs of all of our users and that delivers a station that's exponentially more efficient, that's more fully accessible, and that's just more pleasant and worthy of this great city. So I don't underestimate the difficulty. Obviously, getting the station rebuilt whilst it's still in operation is not going to be easy, but there's a way forward on that. And using the combined expertise of the three railroads, I believe we can get it done.
Well, I would just say, again, from the rider experience, most people don't like wake up and say, I'm a New Jersey Transit rider, or I'm so a lot of people ride multiple railroads or systems in one day. And I think what you want is that form and the function and having those two together, right? What is a great station if it's still really difficult for you to get from point A to B, and if it requires multiple transfers, and if those experiences are different? You can be a Long Island Railroad rider and have an airy, waiting area right now, but if you're a New Jersey Transit rider, you have the pit. And so I think the promise of through running and sort of the railroad coordination, I think I agree it's very much relationships, but there's an expectation from our perspective to remember that most, again, riders don't really think about those different kingdoms. They don't, because the MTA is not on the stage, I'll say a joke we often say, which is that most New Yorkers actually don't really understand what the MTA is. They just know they're supposed to hate it. And that should not be the reality, but I think we have to remember that most folks do live with that. And finding a way, I think you mentioned Penn Access, that to us is very connected to Penn Station, right? We have an opportunity to bring folks in one of the most transit-starved part of our city into Penn Station for the first time. Penn Access has to happen, and when those folks finally start coming into Penn Station, right, having the first ever rail connection, it better be a really wonderful station, because that's our opportunity to say the city and this region can work for you.
May I just make one more point? There are physical, well, not just physical, but organizational and logistical challenges that will need to be overcome. But my mantra in life is anything's possible, because that's true. Ultimately, anything is possible, right? So yes, the Long Island Railroad uses different traction arrangements, electrical arrangements to the New Jersey Transit. That is not insurmountable. The Eurostars used to come off the French side of the channel under the wires, on overhead wires, and then switch to third level shoe collection operation once they go into Kent. So that needs to be looked at, various union agreements, where to put the trains when they go through. But I think what we're proposing here is let's just at least look at what is the future market for through running, what economic benefits could it bring, what markets could it bring to the three railroads. Let's whet people's appetites, and before we just rule it out from the get-go, let's at least have a look at it.
What role do you envision New York City as a municipality playing in this project from every standpoint, including financing?
Well, clearly, New York City is a very important stakeholder for issues as specific as permitting, and Mark, you alluded to that, with the issue of the permit for Madison Square Garden, so there's definitely a role there. We do want to talk to the city about what their vision is for the broader Penn District. And ultimately, when we're talking about putting together this financial stack, you'll remember from my comments that I'm aiming to make that stack as fully populated as possible with funding from myriad sources such that we can minimize the gap of what needs to be repaid. So very early days, we've had meetings with various city officials. They, again, share the view that this station is nowhere near good enough, and let's get it done.
I think the city is going to have a huge role in the development of public space in the surrounding area, for sure. We've got really this historic rezoning that has been approved in the city council to modernize all the neighborhoods around here in Midtown South. That's going to create a more vibrant mixed-use space within 10 blocks in every direction. Of course, we've got the reconstruction of the bus terminal. And what you see here on 33rd Street, just west of 7th Avenue, is a little preview of what we can do with great public space. And credit to Vornado for pulling that off. This is the kind of transformation we could pull off in the entire neighborhood. The city would be a huge partner in that. And of course, then there's the general project plan, the GPP, which is in a dormant state at this point, but had been envisioned to help finance things like new subway entrances, not in the footprint of Penn, but in the surrounding neighborhood, to expand widen sidewalks, all the pedestrian amenities that make for a great neighborhood. That all remains extremely important, even more so when we get a great Penn Station. And so the city and the state are going to be very, very important partners in this project.
And just in agreement with Mark, the city's role is to create spaces. Placemaking is essential for the city to serve residents, visitors, businesses, and serve the needs for people to make the area a destination, express a desire for the amount of housing and office space and commercial retail that should be available in the location. So it's really up to the city to share that viewpoint as the area around the station gets developed. And Andy pointed to the example of the Elizabeth line and housing that has popped up around the Elizabeth line. And also in the past, you've talked about the King's Cross station and the Shinjuku station in Tokyo. Those are examples of areas that were ripe for development, and I think that the area around Penn Station can also see improvements in safety, livability, and enjoyability, as well as the efficiency that we'll expect from this project.
Speaking of the GPP, I'm glad you brought that up. Do you still foresee that as playing a potential role in the financing of the station renovation?
I think my best answer on that can be TBD. It's very early days in terms of putting together the capital stack. So I've learned in life not to rule anything out, but not to necessarily rule anything in. We are working up ideas on what the business case could look like and the sources from which we can build that capital stack. I'm obviously mindful of the GPP. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of some of the controversies around it. Again, we're looking at this from an apolitical perspective. Our motivation is to get this station built and rebuilt and transformed. One thing I forgot to mention in terms of the relationship with MTA and NJT, it will be governed by a memorandum of agreement that we're currently writing up at the moment. And doubtless on the GPP and other potential ways of moving forward, we'll have lots more conversations with New York State, with New Jersey State. I need to really do my homework on how we're going to get this thing funded.
The GPP needs to be updated. It reflects a pretty outdated view. I want to credit Assemblymember Simone, I think he left, but for pushing for more housing to be part of the plan and for pushing for the creation of public green space, which is very sorely lacking in this neighborhood. So I think we have an opportunity now, in light of this project, to revisit the GPP to really create what would be one of the city's great neighborhoods.
Andy, you mentioned that it is your understanding that the president is committed to this project. What do you think his motivation is?
Well, I can't speak for him. I can only speculate. I've never met him. I've never spoken with him. But he's a New Yorker. He's a developer. I think he wants to show that what's possible. But again, I can't speak for him, so that's top of my head.
Okay. Speaking of the president, he released that executive order calling for sort of classical architecture to inform all public projects moving forward. Do you see that impacting the design of these proposals?
We've said to the prospective bidders, and we said this at the industry day where we had people in to get them ready for the competition, all we've said to them is be mindful of that executive order. And the reason we used that wording was it's up to the bidders to interpret what that means. I mean, classical can mean a lot of things to different people. It can mean literally maybe a complete replication of what used to be there, or it could be a much more modern interpretation. We want the bidders, the clever architects, the designers, the developers, to give us their interpretations, and that will obviously form part of the recommendation I make to the Amtrak board. We want something that is functional, but that is beautiful and is a delight to use. On a personal note, I want to make sure it's something that isn't kitsch, is my word. You don't want Vegas on the Houston. You want it to look impressive.
Got it. All right, well, thank you, everyone.